All right, this is the second video that dropped today from the Dungeons & Dragons team. This one specifically is focused on weapon mastery properties. This is a concept that I am not sold on. From the very beginning, I was afraid this was going to be too fiddly of a rule set. Maybe they'll convince me otherwise by the end of this video. But stay tuned to the channel because every one of these videos they drop, I'm going to do a reaction video. So there's going to be a ton of stuff coming out this week.
We have weapon mastery, which has a significant impact on so many classes, subclasses, all these characters that has completely changed the game. Can you tell me more about this?
Weapon mastery properties are brand new properties that we have assigned to all of the game's simple and martial weapons. And you must have a class feature that allows you to unlock weapon mastery to be able to use those properties. And so what this means is if a wizard, for instance, who does not have a weapon mastery feature, picks up a weapon, that weapon is going to function the way they expect it to from the 2014 rules. Although a number of weapons have had some tweaks made to them in addition to the weapon mastery properties. However, if you are a character, whether you are a fighter, a barbarian, a rogue, a paladin, a ranger, or someone who has otherwise unlocked the ability to use weapon mastery, suddenly when you use the dagger.
So what they're saying here is the weapons function just like they did in the 2014 version of D&D, unless you have a class feature that allows you to unlock these weapon mastery properties. So wizards and sorcerers and maybe most warlocks will not be able to access these features. But your warrior classes and your rogue are going to be able to access these features, and we'll see there's probably going to be a feat that you can take to let you unlock these features as well.
Because of your mastery with the weapon, you will be able to unlock its mastery property. And each weapon has a specific mastery property from a list of properties that has been assigned to it. And so with the dagger, that property is a property called Nick. It allows.
Now notice the art in the background here. There's new art for every weapon, so that's kind of cool. They're showing it off in the background here, but that's something that we'll see in the new player's handbook as well.
To benefit from the extra attack that the light property in the dagger gives you without having to spend your bonus action on it. It's simple, but powerful. Because what that suddenly means is the person who has decided to focus their mastery option on daggers, they've just freed up their bonus action to do something else with it. They no longer have to use their bonus action when they are using the light property to get that extra attack each round. But they could.
So they could throw 3 daggers.
They could. But this is just a great example of how weapon mastery powerfully transforms how certain characters use their weapons. There are other weapons.
So if you really want to go all stabby with a dagger, you can really focus on that nick property of the dagger, and that allows you to make 3 attacks with your dagger during a turn. Like I said, this could be really exciting and really good. It could also slow down gameplay and be unnecessarily fiddly. But let's keep going.
That have a property called graze. And if your character unlocks the graze property in a weapon, that means that you are so good at using that weapon that you will always manage to at least graze your target, even if you missed. And again, transformative. Now, no character in the player's handbook has access to every mastery property simultaneously. Just as a spellcaster has to choose the cantrips that they know from a larger list of available cantrips for their class, the characters who have the weapon mastery property choose a certain number of those properties that they have unlocked. And how you make that choice is you choose the weapon. So for instance, if you're playing a class that lets you unlock 2 mastery properties, you would choose 2 weapons. You might pick dagger and short sword. And that means you get to use the mastery properties of those 2 weapons. Some classes are able to have more mastery properties unlocked at one time than others. The leader of the pack in that regard is the fighter. The fighter is the master of weapon mastery. The fighter, over the course of their career, they are able to have more and more mastery properties unlocked at
that, of course, makes sense that you would have the fighter with the most access to weapon mastery properties, because your fighter is supposed to be the most tactical in combat of all the classes. So that makes sense.
And then even at a higher level, they get to a point where they are able to also swap in certain mastery properties over other mastery properties.
Yeah.
But we'll talk more about that when we dig into the fighter.
Yeah, that's amazing, though.
There are other properties that...
What they're talking about there, from what we've seen of the Unearthed Arcana playtest articles, is the fighter is allowed to transpose one weapon mastery property from, say, a short sword to a different weapon. So you might be able to use that Nick property with a weapon that's not a dagger, right? Or that Graze property that I think comes with the axes. You might be able to put that on your long sword. So don't quote me on that, but that is my understanding from what I remember of reading those UAs back when I did those videos.
Push people back. There's Topple, where you can knock someone down with the battle axe, for instance, that has the Topple mastery property. You can choose your weapons to combo with each other in different ways. A great example of this is the short sword has the Vex property, and Vex, when you hit somebody with a weapon that has the Vex property and you've unlocked that property, it means your next attack roll against them has advantage. Well, we carefully constructed the mastery property selections to benefit different sort of class fantasies. So in this case, this is all about empowering the rogue to be able to set themselves up with advantage for their next attack, so that then that attack has
sneak attack.
It can sneak attack. And there are things like that throughout. Ranged weapons, because again, mastery properties aren't just on melee weapons. For example, the longbow has the slow property. And the narrative here is, imagine you're hitting someone in like a leg or somewhere else that is going to slow them down. When you think about the long range...
I used to be an adventurer until I took an arrow to the knee. Some people will get that reference.
The longbow, this allows you to keep that creature way over there because you are making it harder and harder for them to reach you. And again, the tactical possibilities start multiplying, particularly if you have weapon mastery and you're also playing a class that eventually gets extra attack, because you can start using one weapon for one of those attacks and another weapon for the other one, and exploit their different mastery properties to create some fascinating tactical combinations yourself.
So the Great Club has push, which makes perfect sense. You can knock someone back 10 feet. But a heavy crossbow, it's perfect, because if you want to knock someone off a cliff, if you want to shoot someone right off the wall of a castle, that has a new element of strategy now.
And right there too, you see, when you compare the mastery properties on the different weapons, adding them allowed us to bring out some of the narrative differences among these weapons in a way that we never could before. So if you compare the heavy crossbow to the longbow, one of them is slowing, the other one is pushing.
So the idea being that the crossbow is a heavier impact weapon, so it's going to knock the target back, where someone who's an expert shot with a longbow might be able to put a precise shot on the person's leg in order to slow them down. So again, this is giving you tactical choices to make with your weapons. And before he was talking about the ranged weapons, he was talking about multi-attack and being able to have two different weapons. So you might have one weapon that sets you up for advantage to hit with your other weapon that's going to knock the opponent down, to make sure that you are getting a chain reaction out of your different weapon types. So there is a lot of tactical choices that go into this, so I can see why they're excited about the design.
That's actually an example of us being able to finally show how being hit in the real world by those two weapons feels different, because a crossbow hits with a force because of the mechanism. The longbow does not necessarily. I mean, they're both. You don't want to be hit by either of them.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, did they go out and field test this? Did they go out and see what it was like to get shot by those things? Kind of a funny way of explaining it, but I get the point, right? That was the same thing I was saying earlier.
It was a lot of fun for us to look at how can we actually bring these weapons to life in a way we never could before, now that we have weapon mastery. Everyone has the option of taking a feat that unlocks some weapon mastery. So we wanted to make sure that no matter what class that you're playing or subclass, you have the ability to dip your toe into this pool through the feat system.
And there's
So that's what I was saying earlier, that you can get access to these properties even if you're not one of the warrior classes and if you're not a rogue. You can get these options as well. So, and the fact that you're getting a new feat at first level, you're going to be able to take more feats throughout the course of your character's 1 through 20 career.
sap, which gives that target disadvantage.
Sap is perfect against a foe that's actually really scary, and you want to impose disadvantage on their attack rolls.
Yeah.
And so yeah, there are a number of weapons that have sap, and
so that leans into you can build a offensive-minded fighter or a defensive-minded fighter. You can build a character who takes advantage, literally gives themselves advantage on their own attacks, or you can have a defensive-minded fighter like a tank who gives their opponent disadvantage on their attacks.
Like the mace, the spear, and it again really good against the scarier foes, but also another example of us looking at ways to enhance not only the narrative of different weapons, but also key into certain class fantasies better. So the mace, often associated with the cleric, and clerics have traditionally been all about protecting their friends. And so we were particularly eager to then put sap on the mace, because sap is all about diminishing how scary someone else is to your group. Whereas other weapons have mastery properties that are all about knocking people down or setting up your next attack.
The other thing that they said there was the spear also gets that sap property. I believe that's what they were saying. And the spear in real world history is one of the more effective weapons. So it makes sense that the spear would have something that makes it better than it has always been. D&D has never really done the spear justice. Throughout history, from what I understand, the spear has always been one of the more effective weapons in combat and was very commonly used because it was also relatively easy to learn. But D&D has never really done the spear justice. So maybe having these weapon properties, you could build a cool spear fighter. That would be fun.
How many times can you use weapon mastery? Is this every attack you can use that weapon mastery?
Yes. So if you have the weapon mastery unlocked on a weapon that you're using, it's designed so that you can theoretically be benefiting from the mastery property every time that you hit with the weapon, or in some cases, like with the graze property, when you miss with the weapon. And it is because of that design that we kept the mechanical weight of these mastery properties very light. We wanted them to be very impactful, but not a huge slowdown in play.
And
so,
not tremendously complex
Exactly.
by themselves.
Exactly. So they are very weighty in terms of what they do, but they are not highly complex because, particularly in the hands of a character who starts getting many attacks, like think about a high-level fighter who can just attack. We wanted to make sure that because these are getting applied potentially over and over again, that they weren't going to bog the game down. And so that was a huge focus of our internal playtesting, is making sure that these each meet the goal of being really spicy and fun and create tactical interest while at the same time not bogging down play.
We talked about this before, but now when you see one of these weapons in play, you have a different context. It is not just a dice roll now when you see a great axe. When you see a crossbow, it's not just getting hit by a bolt. It's you may get pushed back 10 feet and fly right off a cliff. So there's a new context emotionally and narratively for what these weapons are now. They mean something extra.
Well, especially for the DM, because it is primarily going to be monsters that are facing this.
Absolutely.
But it also means that players can be much more interactive with each other in setting combos up. Because now if you know, all right, that crossbow isn't just going to do damage, but it might also displace the target, that creates a tactical situation for the group to have fun thinking about that wasn't there before.
So this is the thing that I'm probably most excited about, is that as players, you're going to be able to kind of tag team monsters by using different abilities with these properties. And what you might have to do as a DM is use some NPCs early on in your campaign to show players how those combos can work. So you might, as a DM, get to play around with these features as well, because you can give these features to your NPC stat blocks. That might not be something that's in the monster manual, but it's definitely something you could do as a DM.
It's very simple, though, but that is by design, as you mentioned. But it's had a tremendous impact in playtest and even your home game.
Oh, the weapon mastery transforms every battle. And again, we had to make sure that the complexity level was low because of how often it can happen. And I can say in our playtests that it has succeeded at delivering the fun and the tactical interest that we wanted. I, in the playtest, spent most of my time playing a fighter, and I had a ball creating, especially as the fighter was higher level and had more and more masteries unlocked. I loved being able to play this mini game of, all right, at first I want to use this weapon because of this mastery property. Then my next attack will be this one where I can exploit what I did with the previous weapon.
Now, while I was recording my reaction to that video, we got this article that dropped on D&D Beyond, and it explains the actual rules for weapon mastery properties. And I'll be honest with you, there has not been a big change from the playtest documents. But let's go ahead and take a look. First thing you'll notice is that the fighter has access to weapon mastery properties for all simple and martial weapons. So all of them. The barbarian gets access to weapon mastery properties for simple and martial melee weapons. So they're not going to get weapon mastery properties for your ranged weapons. The paladin, ranger, and rogue are all based on their weapon proficiencies. So basically whatever they are proficient in, they get access to those weapon mastery properties. The rogue is further limited because they get access to all the weapon mastery properties for simple weapons, but they only get the weapon mastery properties for finesse and light martial weapons. So the martial weapons with the finesse and light property, the rogue will be able to access weapon mastery properties for. It comes in here and describes each of them. Cleave, of course, is the one that allows you to hit one opponent and you slice through it and hit another opponent. Graze is the one they talked about in the video earlier, where the idea is your weapon is so big that you don't really have to aim with it. You just swing and you're going to do some damage even if you roll a miss. Nick is the other one they talked about with the dagger, which gives you the access to dual wielding the light weapons without using your bonus action. Push, just what it sounds like, it knocks the opponent down. However, it does not apply to huge enemies. It works for large, medium, and small enemies. Sap is the one they also talked about in the video that gives you disadvantage. That gives your target disadvantage on their next hit. Slow, of course, reduces their movement. Topple knocks them down. And Vex, that gives you advantage on your next attack when you hit with a Vex weapon. I'll put a link in the description below. And also I'll pin a link in the comments so you can see this article for yourself. But none of this changed. This is exactly what we saw in the playtest document. However, this article does give you some flavorful description to help you understand why they chose the weapon property for the weapon. You read that colorful description, you kind of get a feel for what their intention was with these weapon mastery properties. So like I said, the wording is a little bit different. However, it is all exactly the same as the playtest document. The flex property is not here though. That is one of the properties that they did away with. So we're not getting the flex property. Apparently nobody liked that in the playtest feedback. The other thing that I hoped they were going to change, but they didn't, was the topple property. The topple property still requires a saving throw by the opponent to prevent them from being knocked down. That's the kind of thing that makes me think these might slow down play somewhat. However, overall, the design seems solid and it provides a lot of tactical flexibility, like I said earlier. So hopefully these weapon properties are adding more excitement and more fun to the game without slowing things down too much. And that way, the excitement and the fun are worth the time it takes to implement these rules into your game. Now, these videos are coming fast and furious, so I am not spending a whole lot of time in the editing room. We're just going straight at it, one video after the next, and they are coming out. There's been 3 today, and there'll be, I think, 1 every day the rest of the week. So stay tuned. I'm doing my best. We're getting these out as fast as I'm getting these out as fast as I can. Thanks again for visiting the Dire Den, and I'll see you next time.